Hey guys, before you watch today's match, if you didn't know, Collider Live it's basically our daily show that we do as far as like a morning radio show. It's on Collider Video. Maybe you do, maybe you don't know about it. You should be watching it or listening to it every day. Go and check it out. We talk about Schmoedown stuff, but we also talk about movies. We talk about wrestling. We talk about TV. We talk about nonsense. So go on over, check out Collider Video or anywhere podcasts can be found. It's Collider Live. It's 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. live PST. So check it out. Now get out of here and go watch this match. It's going to be good.
Mike Kalinowski has tied the game. Sudden death we go.
Cruiser Ninko?
Ninka.
And July 20th, San Diego Comic-Con, you're going to see the Inner Geekdom champion Rachel the Crusher Cushing. She will put that title on the line, and it will be against... That's right, the Smasher, Kevin Smets or Mike Kalinowski, who will win.
We're 2 matches away from a championship belt. I'll make sure Kalinowski lives up to his name KO when I knock him out.
You got this new breed that's come on up here, and they're bringing their A game. But they're just beginning, and Kalinowski's going to be the one taking on Rachel and San Diego.
You're a bump in the road, my title.
Comic-Con, that's the next defense is going to be. That's where we're going to be on the other side of that table, getting that belt back.
If he wants to lose for a 4th time to me, bring it.
July 20th, Saturday. You can get tickets right now at theshmoedownlive.com.
Pluto.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Schmoedown Rundown. Introducing first, KRISTIAN and the host of the Schmoedown Rundown, Brad Gilmore.
What's up, movie trivia Schmoedown fans? Welcome to the Schmoedown Rundown, the official after show of the movie trivia Schmoedown. My name is Brad Gilmore, but you might know me by another name. You might know me as The Boat. Hashtag best of all time. Hashtag Brad the Opinion is True. Hashtag Boat Life. Hashtag I'm on a boat. And shout out to everybody. I hope you had a great Independence Day, 4th of July. I hope you fired up the Will Smith movie and not that crappy sequel. And also, shout out to everybody who supported and celebrated in Friendswood and Austin, Texas, Booker T and Brad Gilmore Day. We really appreciate all the love that we got doing that. Shout out to the mayors, man. Shout out to the mayors. I can do that. Shout out to the mayors. And also shout out to my co-host. His name is the frankest of Janish. He is Frank Janish.
Yeah, how did you and Booker did you guys donate to his campaign? What is this day in Friendswood?
We've been Friendswood residents for a long time, and with our show on ESPN doing so well, #1 show over on ESPN 97.5, we just decided, they decided to give us our own day. So shout out to
That's awesome.
the city of Friendswood and Austin, Texas as well. So Frank Janish, we are here. This is going to be maybe a shorter episode because we're on holiday. We're actually pre-taping this.
Yeah.
Oh, shocker. We pre-tape every episode.
Yeah.
People didn't know that. But we have to talk about the matches that were this week. There was the 2 Jeannine the Machine appearances. We had the Time Machine debut against the Paddington 2.
Machine Week.
And we had Jeannine the Machine versus Mike Kalinowski. We're going to talk about those in a minute. I want to bring up something here, and then I know that you have a certain topic that you'd like to bring up. But Frank Janish, there was a lot of chatter, if that's the right word. There was a lot of discussion. There was a lot of murmurs on the internets about our discussion from last week. Now, there's a couple things that actually happened. One, there were some interesting YouTube comments regarding some of your philosophies and ideas regarding the former Inner Geekdom champion of the world, Maura Kanopik. A lot of things there. You still stand by everything you said?
I do, because I think it didn't come out quite the way that I would have liked. I didn't formulate the way I would have liked. And so then I went into the comments and had some discussions with a couple people in there. So I felt like I kind of cleared it up a little more there. I really don't care to really keep going into it. It is what it is. And people are going to think what they want to think. And that's fine. They point towards... What you lost over there? What's going on?
I'm trying to hang my hat, but continue.
So... I think I even said it on the show, like, I think fluke was not the right word, but I just don't know the word there, and it's not to take away her accomplishment becoming a champion. It was just everything that led up to that moment. I just thought was very fortunate and fluky and lucky. And yes, a lot of champions have spurts of luck. I mean, look at the Patriots. You don't win 9 in a row without having an ounce of luck. Exactly. So, but when I looked more closely at Mara's matches and how everyone played, and that's where my point of view was coming from. Looking at it, it's not to take away that I think she's a really good player, but when I looked at her matches, it was just like, wow, it's pretty incredible that things broke her way time after time after time after time, and usually that doesn't happen as frequent as it did for her.
I understood what you meant by it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people probably viewed it, though, as an Andy Ruiz Jr. type situation, more than, somebody who definitely had technical skill and just, the opponents may have been more favorable. But she did go through Rachel Cushing, Jason Inman, and Mike Kalinowski. So, I mean, that's kind of
it's a very valid point. Right, it's a very valid point. And, believe me, you think I didn't think of that when I was formulating this? It's like,
I don't know, you might not have.
Oh, very nice, Brad.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So it is, but it's fun, but also tiring having to continually defend your point. And I mean, this would just be a whole lot easier if people would just agree with me and we can just move on. Can we do that?
Yeah. The thing about it is that people don't agree with you.
Yeah.
And
but there are.
I personally don't agree with you.
That's fine.
There are some.
Though. There. And I honestly, I'll be honest. I'll be like, I was actually kind of surprised people would actually admit to agreeing. You can agree and not say anything online, but then to agree and then type it out, be like, yeah, you might have a point there. I was a little surprised actually, because people don't want that smoke.
It's like people. It's like people in it's like people in political campaigns, right? Where they poll you and they ask you, "Who'd you vote for?" You're not going to tell them,
right?
Even, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? I agree. I might agree with somebody, but I'm not telling you who I voted for. But Frank Janish, the other thing that I wanted to bring up is we also had a heated discussion or conversation, if you will, to name drop an old show of mine, about Rachel Cushing. In the Inner Geekdom division, is she the greatest of all time? I know you put out a poll and it was cute.
I didn't put out a poll. That wasn't me.
Oh, who put out the poll? Who put the poll?
Another listener of ours. His name escapes my mind at the moment, but he's always in the comments. He's always listening and watching. But he put up that poll in the Facebook group for the greatest Inner Geekdom player of all time.
Inner Geekdom player. And
I had to screenshot it and send it to you. And because the results, Daya, that was his name, Daya. And last I looked, Rachel Cushing was leading in that poll, 226 votes. To the second place was Mara Knopik at 56 votes over Mike Kalinowski, 51 votes. That's when I took the screenshot. Those totals are probably different now, but I can't imagine Mara or Mike tallied up 200 more votes since the time I took the screenshot, maybe. But so I had to be like, hey, look, a lot of the people out there that voted, at least, agree that Rachel is the IG GOAT. Which I'm surprised people are picking Mara over Kalinowski. That blows my mind.
That's a little surprising to me.
Blows my mind.
That's a little surprising to me as well. But this is what I wanted to say about this. I want to make sure that I made my position clear here. I was not trying to say that Rachel Cushing isn't in the conversation or she's not deserving of being called the GOAT. But I think when you talk about greatest player, it's different from talking about, we were talking about free agency in basketball earlier. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, you can say that they're two of the greatest shooters ever in the history of the game of basketball. And you know how you can prove that? You can go to their statistics. You can say, well, look, they have attempted this many threes, they've made this many. They've attempted this many field goals, they've made this many. These are how many points on how many attempts. You can make that case for they're the greatest shooters of all time. Of all time. You can make that case because you have stats to back it up. But when you talk about who's the greatest player of all time, when you talk about who's the GOAT of a certain league, you can't define that by statistics alone. You can't, because there's certain something, especially when we talk about guys like your Chicago Sun, Michael Jordan, the greatest player to ever do it on the basketball court. You can look at stats. You can say, 6-0 in the finals. It's a great stat. 5 MVPs, 6 Finals MVPs,
30 points per game.
All-Star appearances. Yeah, I mean, Defensive Player of the Year. You can look at these things, right? But why do we say that Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time? Because he's not the highest points leader. He's not. He doesn't have the most championships ever. We talked about that last week. A lot of people, Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain. We were making a point, guys.
Yeah.
We were talking about people who were playing against Bobby Sheboygan, from Des Moines.
We got mixed up there.
But anyway, it's not about the amount of championships that he won. We say Michael Jordan's the greatest because of 2 things, really. One, the eye test. No matter the situation that he was in, we knew that Michael Jordan was going to get through that game. And really, the biggest thing that made him the greatest of all time was that gene that cannot be tallied for via statistic. There's not a number that you can put on it. It's that gene that we call the clutch gene. Yeah. Michael Jordan was clutch. And you can't find a mathematic equation or formula or anything on the periodic table of elements that can show you that Michael Jordan had clutch gene. It was a feel. You know, a lot of times, really, when determining the greatest, it's like air. You can feel it, but you can't see it. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
You can feel it, you can touch it, but you can't hold it. You can't see it. You just know that it's there. And that's what, to me, makes you the GOAT. And right now, statistically speaking, you can make the case that Rachel Cushing is the greatest movie trivia Schmoedown competitor of all time. But we also have to remember the game is just that. It's a game. It's a sport that requires more than just knowledge. It requires the ability of how to play the game. There's a difference between being a great trivia player and a great Schmoedown player. These are just all the things that I was thinking over the last week. So I think that you can make the case for Rachel Cushing being one of the greatest of all time. I think that case can be made. Is she the greatest? The numbers might say so, but do you feel it?
So in terms of like playing the game, I would say prior to Rachel joining Clark and the Shire Wolves and the 5 Club and all that, I would say prior to that she probably wasn't the greatest player of the game, even though she had the knowledge. But since she joined the Shire Wolves, or teamed up with Clark, right, in the 5 Club and all that, and they went on that run and still continue to go on that run, you could see how Clark really, I think, helped elevate Rachel's play of the game, really thinking about it in a methodical manner. Because, yeah, you're right, everyone knows knowledge is there for Rachel. And had it not been for, I think, that kind of elevation of play with Rachel, I would happily defer to her just being in the conversation as one of the greats. But because of the run that she went on, and especially because of the play, that she had against the Odd Couple in Collision, how she kept her focus and kept that team afloat, everything she's done. And since joining with the Shire Wolves and 5 Club, she's gone on to win 2 belts, right? So she did all of that while elevating her game, because with the help of Clark Wolf and Emma Fife and Mark and Draco, and that helped elevate her game. So I think her game has been brought up levels, and that's why I feel that's why I feel as adamant as I do.
Yeah, no, and I hear you. I think that we both have solid arguments, and only time will tell. And it's interesting that we talk about that, because the Time Machine made their debut in the movie Trivia Schmoedown this week, and then Jeannine the Machine and Mike Kalinowski. We want to talk about a guy who I said, if he goes out there and beats Rachel Cushing, in my opinion, he's the greatest Schmoedown Intergeekdom player of all time.
Can I just speak to that point real quick? It's interesting that...
You can.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just because it's kind of... I want to know...
No, you can't.
The logic is where between... Okay, if Mike beats Rachel, then he's the greatest Intergeekdom player of all time. However, we still have Rachel, who beat Mike for the title at the Throwdown, and who also beat Mike previous to that in Intergeekdom, and who also beat Mike in a number 1 contender shot last year, which is not part of the
Triple threat, we throw that out.
Right. But if Mike is then to win the title from Rachel, then he's the greatest. But Rachel beat Mike for the title, and yet then she's not the greatest. So help me with the disconnect.
Right. Well, no. I'm saying this, though. I'm saying right now, if Mike Kalinowski goes out there and beats Rachel Cushing, he is the greatest Intergeekdom player of all time, in my opinion. And in my opinion, he surpasses Jason Inman for one thing and one thing only, the clutch gene. That's what we talked about a minute ago. You saw the clutch gene come into play in that Kevin Smets match. You even saw it in his initial Mara Kanopic match, and he went on one of the great Inner Geekdom runs that we have seen. Now, Rachel Cushing did as well. Rachel Cushing goes out there and beats Mike Kalinowski. I think we're going to have a different conversation the week after July the 20th. Then you and I can really talk. We can really figure this out and have the definitive debate, because if she wins, there is a great case for her now. I mean, you talk about the clutch gene, and for me, Mike Kalinowski, though, has proven time and time again that this is a guy who knows how to play the game. He understands the game, and he has a sense about him for questions that are going to be asked. There's something to say about that. You know, it's almost like Muhammad Ali, and I hate to always make comparisons, but this is, I don't take Muhammad Ali because this is the second time I've done it, but he understood how his opponent was going to fight before they even stepped inside the ring. He knew what combinations that George Foreman liked to throw. He knew going in, I have an exact strategy, and I've beaten this man in my head 100 times in my sleep last night, and I know exactly what I'm going to go and do out there in the ring tonight. And guess what, though? If his plan went astray, he didn't waver, he didn't shake, he kept punching, keep on punching, Apollo, and he made it happen. That's what I saw Mike do in that match against Rachel Cushing at the Throwdown. This is a guy who had a game plan, and when he came out and it wasn't being executed, he's like, all right, boom, let me take some hits, boom, 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 and now I'm going to come back out swinging. And he did, and he almost won that. One consonant, we have a different conversation, perhaps. Perhaps. We wouldn't have known, but perhaps we have a different conversation. So that's why I'm saying if he goes out there on the biggest stage the Inner Geekdom Championship has ever been on, San Diego Comic-Con, This is the mecca. Well, this is the mecca of Inner Geekdom.
I will 100% agree. If he wins that match,
that you say statistically, hold on, you say he beats the person you say statistically is the greatest Inner Geekdom player of all time, and he beat Mara Kanopic. I have no choice but to anoint him the greatest. Now, Rachel Cushing goes out there and does it again. She shuts me up. I have no more argument, and I'll come on the rundown and say, hey, guys, I think I got this one wrong. Janish saw something in the numbers. Like Jim Carrey in the number 23. He saw something going on and that I didn't see. But right now, I'm saying that title of GOAT or BOAT is still up for grabs. By the way, can I say in the post-match or post-show for the Collision, when the Shire Wolves were being interviewed, there was a boat reference. Someone said, "Are they the boat of the?"
Yes, that's right. I did
enjoy that.
I did hear that. I remember seeing that.
Shout out to whoever said that. But anyway, anything you want to add before?
One last point in terms of Kalinowski and Rachel is that Rachel came into the Inner Geekdom at an extremely high level of play. Kalinowski, while good, was not at that level. So I have to think that being consistently good from the time you entered to present day has to count for something, and Rachel has been that from the jump, where Mike suffered a couple setbacks, went to work, and then came back, and yes, won the title, and then lost it, but now is ultimately back in contention to take it back from Rachel. So I look at that as well, because Rachel has been has been consistent throughout. Yes, she had that down game against Mara, and we all know the circumstances of that event.
Right.
Mike, he lost to Coy, and then he lost to Rachel, and then he had to come back. And you're right, he had one of the great tournament runs we've seen in any tournament, especially, specifically speaking of IG, he knocked out his first two people, then, it got a little bit tougher from there. But I think consistently Rachel has been at the top, and there's nothing wrong with taking your lumps, going to work, and I'm not saying that automatically eliminates you from, reaching the highest mountain there. I just think when we look at the overall picture of what's going on in Inner Geekdom, I think consistency should also be looked at.
And I don't disagree, but one more thing, and then we'll move on. But the last thing to say about that is you mentioned this on the last podcast and this one now about the circumstances of Rachel Cushing's loss to Mara Kanopic. Well, I will tell you this: if you go look at any championship in any sport, and you say, "Oh man, I wonder, how did Andy Ruiz win that championship, or how did the Houston Rockets go out there and win the NBA Finals, or the World Series rather?" No one's going to say, "Well, they really wouldn't have won had it rained during Game 5." I mean, when it rained during Game 5, it threw Cole's pitch off. He wasn't throwing it like he was. And, had that not happened, we got to play with the circumstances that we had. So there are no asterisks next to
I'm not forgiving that. I'm not saying you should ignore that because people will throw that at me all the time discussing the Mark Canopic issue. I'm like, they both played the game. They both answered those questions. It is what it is. I can't, they both were under different sets of ailments, right? And it is what it is. They played. I can't forgive them for that. So I 100% agree with that. But I was just pointing out that in a streak of 8 matches, there was one where it's like, but.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Mike Kalinowski some more here. Mike Kalinowski went one-on-one with Jeannine the Machine, the person that I pegged, Jeannine, to win that Manager Bowl. Almost did it, one question away. Stupid Leo movie, who cares? But let's get to the fact of this. Mike Kalinowski and Jeannine the Machine, winner of this, played Ben Bateman, and there's kind of this secondary tournament going on, I think, to almost declare a new number one contender maybe in singles.
Yeah.
Mike Kalinowski, though, last time he went on a run like this for a singles championship in the singles league, I mean, it didn't work out too well for him. I mean, in all honesty, we were there in that number one contender match that you mentioned earlier. And it was one of the worst displays by any elite player
on that level, yeah.
In Schmoedown history. I mean, it's one of the worst performances. And you know what? I know that he holds that. I know that he hates that. But Mike Kalinowski has used it to fuel him not only in Inner Geekdom, but now here in singles. And now we see him and Jeannine the Machine. Jeannine the Machine, I think, is what you call raw talent. This is somebody who just has it and just has to harness it. And in this match with Mike Kalinowski, I'm going to be honest, as much as I love Jeannine the Machine, I did not like her chances against Mike just based upon the role that he's been on. Now, I know that this isn't Inner Geekdom. I know this.
Right.
But especially when Mike went up there in round 2 and spun that wheel and I was looking at all the slices that were on that board, I said, oh man, he's got a lot of opportunities here. There was comic book movies, Tom Cruise, James Bond, 1980s. I'm thinking Mike Kalinowski does well in all 4 of those categories. And then, of course, there's Spinner's Choice. So 5 categories, if you really want 5 slices on the wheel, really landing in his favor, in my opinion. Then I'm looking at it, too. James Bond, Tom Cruise, 80s. Those aren't so good for Jeannine the Machine in that regard. And I don't know if that's a failure of management not to get better categories on that slice, because she did have comic book movies. She had rom-coms. But when I saw the slices there, I just thought that this was a game that was favoring Mike Kalinowski. But we can break it down more statistically. Round 1, they came out what?
Kalinowski had 6, Jeannine with 7. So, Jeannine picking up where she left off from Collision and Free For All, and the way she's been playing this whole year. So it was looking good for Jeannine right off the bat. And Mike, 6 points is nothing to sneeze at either. 6 out of 8. That's a very good score. And you're only 1 behind Jeannine. So I thought it was a really good, evenly well played match. And I was curious, because the second round here is ultimately kind of one of the bigger deciding factors, almost seemingly every game.
Yeah, absolutely, and then that's really where we saw the dramatic shift here. Yeah. And sometimes, we were just talking about pitching, and when a pitcher, when he throws the ball, and he just knows that they're about to hit a home run with it, and they always say the same thing in baseball. Man, he really wish he had that one back. Right, he really wish he had that one back. Well, Mike Kalinowski goes first. He spins Spinner's Choice. He goes to James Bond, to no one's shock.
Right.
Now, I will say this. I played along in the car, because that's where I was watching this match. I answered quicker, and I got all of my Bond categories right. I'm just throwing that one out there. I'm just throwing it out there, because eventually, one day, KRISTIAN Harloff will acquiesce to my request to have a James Bond exhibition match, which I most certainly am going to enter in and make my Schmoedown debut. I'm just telling you, Back to the Future James Bond, you're not beating me. And KRISTIAN, if you want to do a Back to the Future match, too, 30th anniversary of the second movie's coming up, 30th anniversary of the third movie's coming up. I'm just saying, we could throw that out there. Today, when we're recording this, actually on July 3rd, 34th anniversary of the first film. So many great things. Shout out to Jeffrey Wiseman, who threw... Look at this. I'm going to share this with everybody. Jeffrey Wiseman, who played George McFly in Back to the Future 2 and 3. The other night, I put a little video up on my Back to the Future collection, here on the show. And Jeffrey Wiseman DM'd me, and he sent me some items from Back to the Future of his. Isn't this cool? So these were some glasses that were on set from Back to the Future 2.
Okay.
From the 1980s, when they're, I mean, not from the 1980s,
2015.
from the 2015.
Right.
When they're, around
He's upside down? Is that when he's...
whatnot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So these were just on set stuff.
That looks good on you.
And then also, look at this.
Oh, that is cool. He ate the pizza,
And,
though. He ate it, though.
autographed
Okay.
Pizza. Yeah, a hydrated pizza. So anyway, but I'm just saying, Christian Harloff, we can do it if you want to do it. You know what I mean? I'll wreck shop. But back to the point at hand here. Mike Kalinowski runs the board in James Bond.
Well, he misses one.
Almost. He gets the coming question.
Yeah. So
he misses that one.
Which is interesting because I just need to say that I'm surprised Jeannine didn't pick up on the way that they disallowed that question, because if she heard, I don't know where she was at in her headspace, but I found it kind of surprising that she didn't pick up on the way that they denied his answer. And I don't know what was going on. You can't see everything that's going on there at the table, and they cut back and forth from the announcer's table to their desk, so their table. So I thought it was kind of surprising she didn't pick up on it, because I thought that's a huge 2 points, man. That would have been a huge 2 points.
Yeah. And here's the thing. This is, again, what we're talking about, Schmoedown player versus knowledge player. James Harden. You can say what you want about him. He knows how to manipulate the rules to his advantage, right? He knows, hey, if I stick my foot out when I'm coming down, I might get a foul called and I can go to the line. Jeannine the Machine, and I think Jay Washington maybe should have done a better job at this as well. When you hear Mike Kalinowski say the answer, the crowd claps.
Right.
As if, oh, yeah.
That's right.
Hey, he got it right. Mm-hmm. They clap. And then Christian goes,
actually,
no, can't accept that. That's wrong. Jeannine. Here's the other thing. I would have asked for a repeat, knowing that this is Mike's greatest category, and if you can get a 2-point steal off of him when you're already getting pretty much the answer minus an S, I'd ask for a repeat, and I'm hoping that when Jeannine heard the question back, she would hear what X-Men franchise actor.
Yeah.
Right? And then if she hears, oh, wait a minute. Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, he said Cummings is not coming. Oh, hey, that's the answer. Boom. Mm-hmm. Just taking that extra 15 seconds or so, she could have put that all together.
It's possible.
So, hey, it's possible, and maybe I'm expecting way too much, but the elements of getting that question correct and getting that steal were there. Now Jeannine goes up, though. She's in a bit of a hole. She spins 80s movies first. She goes, oh, I don't know. Spins again. She's looking for that rom-com category, which we know she can do so well. And she comes within a hair's breadth of it.
Yeah.
But it goes on the dreaded opponent's choice. And Dan Merle even called it. By the way, Dan Merle on commentary here with
it was great.
Schmoedown Singles Championship.
Slice hunting? I love that. Slice hunting. That was great.
Yeah, he said something. Is she going for the red and green something or another? He said
the red and green special, the dreaded red and green combo. I think that's what he said. Red and green combo.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But it's what happened. He called it, and she lands on opponent's choice. Mike Kalinowski, after a little bit of deliberation, goes for Tom Cruise, which is a category what you might say is akin to a James Bond in a way.
In Kalinowski's deliberation, I kind of have a little bit of an issue with chance being involved there. It should be manager to player, not faction. But that's semantics, I guess. But I just felt like
I don't know if it is. I don't know if it is semantics. I don't know. You might be right.
You know what I'm saying? I was like, interesting that they let chance in there when it should have just been Ken. Okay. But
I think we should find corruption for tampering.
Yeah, exactly.
We should find them for tampering.
Exactly.
But anyway, he goes with Tom Cruise movies. And
TC legend.
Yeah. and
action industries.
Jeannine goes okay-ish. Went to multiple choice, had to get a couple.
She had 2 points,
but
so.
Yeah, she was going into the third round, I think, with a 6-point disadvantage there.
Yeah.
She had to make up 6 points, which I don't know has ever been done, right?
It has been.
Or has it been done twice?
I have that number, so keep talking.
Well, I just remember that 5. If you have 5, you could possibly come back, but it's still going to be a tough hill. But if you're over 5, pretty much any time, your statistics would tell you, oh, hell no, do you not have a snowball's chance in hell of getting over that hump? And really, it's just astronomical odds. You have to hope that your opponent misses their 3 and 5.
Yeah, exactly. Really? When you have to answer at least 2 questions to throw it back, it's never ideal. And then now you have to actually answer all 3 to even have a shot. So 6-point deficit has happened before, but it was in a 5-round melee between Josh Macuga and Tom Dagnino. You remember that when it was 12-6, Dagnino was up 12-6 over Macuga. It was that 5-rounder, and Macuga came back and won. But since then, the largest comeback has only been by 4 points. And Draco did that at last year's Collision when he was down 13-9, and Jeannine and Draco. Actually, and Draco and Stacey Howard were tied at 9 apiece. And then the other 4-point comeback was Bibiani over Andraco. That was in the title match when they played. So it's 4 points and that's only been done a couple times here. So it's not very easy to do.
No, it's not, and it didn't happen for Jeannine.
Yeah,
she wasn't able to pull it off, and you know what, Mike Kalinowski, he played the better game, he got the better questions, he
got the better spin, he got the better spins, really. Yes. I mean, so
and he ended up on top. Interesting altercation, really, between Ben Bateman and Mike Kalinowski afterward. Also got a shout out to Jeannine for trying to play the mental mind games with the vanilla ice cream. The Wonder Bread,
that was good, yeah,
and all that. It was funny. Didn't throw Mike at all, and corruption was all eating the bread and the ice cream in the post match interview. Interesting, weird kind of interaction between Mike Kalinowski and Ben Bateman. I think, you know what? You remember that episode of Seinfeld where Jerry and Elaine are just like screaming at each other? I think it was in the Fix Up. They're screaming at each other. They're yelling. They're like kind of doing like the this kind of fighting, just slapping, and then Kramer gets in the middle of them and goes, "Can't you two just see that you're in love with each other?" That's kind of what I felt like with Ben Bateman and Mike Kalinowski. I don't know why. I feel like there's more of a love thing here than a hate thing. Mike Kalinowski said, "What are you going to do? Hit me with a chair?" Which I enjoyed the call back to Houston.
Right. Ben
Bateman says he's going to go down. He beat him before, so we'll see what happens there. I'll be honest with you. I love Ben Bateman. He's a guy who deserves to have a championship around his waist. I really like this matchup.
I do.
I really like this matchup.
And I'll tell you right now, I'm taking Ben Bateman. I'm taking Ben Bateman just because Mike's got a lot on his plate. He's got a lot on his plate. I mean, he's on in 3 leagues, and
yeah,
it's tough, especially at the end of the month when you go up against Rachel Cushing for the belt, the one that you want the most, probably the most, the one you're hungry for, and you've been after it, and you just had it for a brief second, and then you lost it. I gotta believe. I mean, it really is a big mental hurdle to get over and to not look past certain matches because you're looking at this one or looking at that one.
Right.
If he beats Ben Bateman, then he goes plays Snyder, and the winner of that gets a title shot. So. I believe that's what they were. I believe that's how they worded it. So, but I'm going to take Ben because he's on a mission for a singles belt. In the same way, Kalinowski's been on a mission for the Inner Geekdom belt. Can Kalinowski do it? Sure, but I think he needs to get the spins. I mean, not like sickness, but I think he needs to get opponents or spinner's choice. He needs to get one of those in his favor, I think. But then he's also got to play it correctly to take advantage of that. So, whereas I think Ben, I just think he has that confidence where he's not scared and he's confident in anything that goes up there. I think he believes in his own training regimen, and I've seen it, and I think he even showed you when we were in Houston. So, he puts in the work just as much as any other player. He helped elevate that part of the game, and it's been across all 3 divisions. So. I'm going to take Ben in this one, but, man, I think it's going to be an interesting match, for sure.
I can't wait to see it. And you know what? Right now, I don't think I'm even in – I don't think I've thought about the match enough to make a prediction this far out. But when we get closer, I'll definitely have a better analysis. But let's talk about Jeannine here.
Mm-hmm.
Jeannine, big loss at the Manager Bowl, 1 question away. She could have had it. Jay Washington would have been in charge of the movie Trivia Schmoedown, which, by the way, Robert Meyer Burnett takes over the Schmoedown on July the 15th.
Right.
July the 15th, he's taking over the Schmoedown, so hide your kids, hide your wives.
Exactly.
If you remember that
Yes,
video.
I do. Oh, my gosh.
And so we'll see what happens. But, these are two big losses to me for Jeannine. Now, earlier in the week, this week, she went up in teams, in a debut team scenario with Time Machine. And I want to talk about that because, there sometimes there are great individual performers. And they're remembered as great individual performers. Whether it's whomever you want to talk about, whether it's, Jay-Z, great individual performer. There's Beyonce, the even better one, great individual performer. Beyonce, this is the one I'm going to roll with. So Beyonce, probably widely regarded as the greatest entertainer in the world right now. On top of everything, she's a quadruple threat. She's gorgeous. She's from Houston. Those are two of her four qualities.
Two of the four, yeah.
She's a tremendous singer, actress, and dancer.
Does she have her own
Couple
day in
threats.
Houston? I have to assume she has her own day in Houston.
I'm sure she does.
Like three of them, maybe.
I'm sure
even.
she does.
Yeah.
But she doesn't have her own day in Friendswood. So anyway, but she's one of the most talented solo performers of all time. Now, let's think about Kelly Rowland, though. Kelly Rowland, phenomenal. She has all the same qualities. Gorgeous, from Houston, incredible singer,
Right.
and dancer.
In that
But
order,
one
yeah.
thing different from Beyonce. She works better in a group. She's better within Destiny's Child. When Beyonce and Kelly are together, oh, brother, where art thou? You know what I mean? I'm ready for it. I am here for it. I say that to say this. Some people are remembered as singles performers. Some people are remembered in duos or teams. Again, Robert Horry. Some people might know who that is. Or some people might know, oh, Robert Horry, he was a part of a great championship team in Houston. Or he was a part of a great championship team in L.A. He's got 7 rings. He was great in in San Antonio, wherever the hell he was. He was a great team player. More so not the star, but worked better with a team, right? I say this to say this. I think the Time Machine has all the makings of being the greatest team in the movie Trivia Schmoedown history. I know that's big. It's huge. It's massive.
Yeah.
But you have to think about a balance of power. And I think that these two people, big time Ethan Irwin, Jeannine the Machine, these are two people who balance each other out so well. So well do they balance each other out. And Jeannine's big flaws in things like, 1980s movies that we saw, stuff of that era, maybe some of the action flicks or some of those big, movie star driven films from the 1980s and 90s, even early 2000s, maybe even late 70s. These are things that Ethan Irwin can pick up on, but then opposite of the spectrum. Stuff like rom-coms.
Or family, animated, yeah.
Family and animated, what I was about to say. Even comic book movies. This is Jeannine the Machine. Jeannine and Ethan. Although, we were going into extra territory here against the Paddington 2, Alonzo Duralde, Matt Atchity. I saw all the makings of a championship team. And I truly believe that Ethan Irwin is going to join the ranks of people like KRISTIAN, HARLOFF, and people like John Roca of winning team gold and singles gold. And I really, really believe that if the Shire Wolves run continues like it has, this, not The Odd Couple, not Who's the Boss, this is the team that can do it and do it well. And I think right now, Time Machine, not only the greatest name in the movie Trivia Schmoedown League, at least in my opinion, for obvious reasons, but this is going to be a phenomenal team.
It's funny is you say that about Time Machine after one match, but yet when you're asked Bateman or Kalinowski, you're like, don't know, ask me in a couple of weeks. Okay.
Well, no, because I just don't know yet. I haven't thought about that one. This one I've thought.
Okay, you thought of it. Okay.
I put thought into it.
You know what? I think you bring up some good points, but it's one match. I think. I don't think joked about it, but they talked about in the post-match interview that there wasn't much communication between them in the second round. When we raise their hand, like, I got this one, and they would defer and like trust that person to answer it. I don't know how well that works here in the teams, because I think the teams that we have seen reach high levels confer on every single question. A, because it's good strategy. It hides a player's perceived weakness or hides perceived strength, perhaps. When you're Team Action was notorious for this. I mean, they would talk to each other, and you couldn't tell who knew what, and then who would be worse than what. So I think they do need to work on the strategy, and that happens with any brand new team. I would like to see more chemistry develop, but that happens with matches. So how does that happen? To get more matches, you got to keep winning. So it's kind of this weird double-edged sword that they're trying to wield. And I think you're right that they could be a legit threat to the top of the table here in teams. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen. And then I think it can, but I don't feel as confident as you do. But I certainly am I've been interested in seeing this team play for quite some time. And I don't know if it's that they didn't live up to my expectations, but look, they played a great game. They played a great game against a tough opponent. So maybe I'm looking at them a little too tough. But I certainly agree that they can be formidable threats to an already very deep team division.
The team league is stacked, and I just think that Jeannine, where she may lack in a singles capacity, she can be a quality addition to any team.
Oh, 100%.
And then you have somebody like Ethan Irwin, who already has been to the top of the mountain in singles, has that ability. I mean, I know we saw him team with Sabina in the Anarchy tournament last year. Right. But I think that this is a better complement to his strengths and weaknesses.
And part of the thing is that I'm having a little bit of reservations because all the great teams we've seen, there's been work put in outside of the Schmoedown, whether it's building chemistry between one another. Like Ethan has a busy schedule. Jeannine doesn't reside in LA, although it's commutable for her. So they're only really gonna connect in person when they're there at the studio, and maybe they're after a day of shooting. I just don't know how much they communicate outside of that to kind of build a rapport, even though both are very friendly, and I'm sure they get along just well, but without any additional effort outside of that, I don't know how long it could take them to reach heights, whereas those heights could be reached much sooner, if you get what I'm saying.
No, I hear what you're saying, and you know where this lies in? This lies in good management.
Bingo.
If Jay Washington
he's got to will it.
Manage the situation, he is the key here. He is the key to this team's success or failure.
Yeah.
And I'm putting that on Jay Washington because I think that Jay Washington, in my opinion, still has something to prove as a manager. Of course, Ethan Irwin won the singles championship, but Ethan was already on that run. You know what I mean? He was already on that run before he and Jay got together. You know what I mean? And I think that Jay has great qualities as a manager. He's a great mouthpiece. And I saw him in New York in person. He was rooting Jeannine on. He knew when she had something. He knew when she didn't.
Yeah.
He has to bring this team together and will it. So that stuff like that happened in the second round where there's that miscommunication about horror or not. What are we going to do? What are we not going to do? Doesn't happen. That's up to Jay. That's something that Roxy Stryer did really well with Odd Couple. She made sure that they were on the same page. They knew what the strategy was. She implemented it. That's why I still think Roxy's pretty much, in my opinion, she's still in the running as,
she's
number one
top
seed.
dog, yeah.
She's the number one seed in the management
for now
side of things right now. For now. So the goal is going to lie here in Jay Washington. Now, the last thing I want to talk about with this match, though, did you feel that the final question was a fair question?
That's an interesting point because Ethan does comment about it.
He does, and even when it was read, I had the same thing. I was like, well, that's more of like...
Yeah.
It's trivia, but it's not trivia about the movie. Well,
per se.
It reminds me of one time there was a question, I think early last season, about, where did this film? Where was this location? Where was the location for this film? Not in the movie. Like, where did they shoot it? Did they shoot it in Saskatchewan or Nova Scotia, wherever the hell? Where did they shoot the movie? And to me, that was like a little too behind the scenes. It wasn't who directed it. To me, that was like asking who is the key grip on Good Will Hunting. It's like, I don't know. Why am I supposed to know that? I'm supposed to know about the movie, the stories, and the actors and the director. That's what I need to know.
Yeah.
And I thought that this one was like, hey, who could have been Wolverine but had to drop out?
Right. And I think...
Well, I don't know.
I think if we're going to have those types of questions, then I think they should be reserved for sudden death rounds. And even with that, I think we should be very deep into sudden round before we get those types of questions. Because, look, we don't really want to run through 30, first round type of questions in sudden death.
Right.
While exciting, that's just chews up the library that those writers are working on, right? So, I mean, that's literally like 4 or 5 matches right there that you're just going through.
Exactly.
So, however, as long as it's understood that when you get into sudden death, be aware that these questions are a possibility, and then I think it's fair game. But if you are unaware that this type of question could even exist in the game, I do think it's a little unfair. However, three of the 4 of them knew the answer, and so yeah, I think we do have to look at that
just
question.
Just because they knew it doesn't mean
no,
it's still
you're
a
right.
question. Yeah.
But I think the point is that because it's knowable to a degree, and that they proved 3 out of 4, I think it's okay to have those. But I would just like to see them deeper into sudden death, and as long as the players are aware that that's what could happen in sudden death.
No, I agree. But I still think Time Machine, man, they got so much, man. They got to come out to the Back to the Future theme. They have to, you know what I mean? It just makes sense to me.
Give me a jingle or something reminiscent.
Or Back in Time.
That's
Take me away, I don't mind. Jay Washington, come on, man.
Yeah,
come on, man.
He ain't rocking with Huey Lewis in the news. You know that. Come on.
Brother, I got some news for him then. Let's talk about one other thing, because you brought it up before we started rolling. There's some odd issues going on in the managerial scene in the movie Trivia Schmoedown. There was a comment that you may have overheard or something. You said it was on Collider Live?
Yeah, it was on I forget which... I forget which day it was this past week, but Christian was talking about the live event in San Diego, and people are starting to ask him who's on the undercard, and
it hadn't been announced.
Right. And so Christian is trying to navigate what's going on with Comic-Con and the Marvel panel and all that stuff. If you've been following Collider Live, you know what I'm talking about. And then you also know that Roxy, when Smets was brought up as being one of the players in the undercard, Roxy said, I don't remember the exact quote, but to the effect that he didn't deserve to be at the San Diego live event as part of the undercard. And Christian didn't push didn't push back too much on her, and of course they're not going to dwell on it. They're doing other things on the show, but other fans saw this. I saw them were tweeting or on, I don't know if it was on Facebook, but at least I saw some tweets that Kevin Smets didn't deserve it, and I don't understand how Roxy could have got to that level. Why? Because just because he lost to Kalinowski at Collision, is that somehow makes him not deserving of it? I don't understand how she got to that place. I don't understand. Because then it's like, who is deserving of the undercard? Who, I don't understand.
Yeah, the undercard is something. Now, this could be a couple of things. These could be, it happens in every league, in every sport, in every business even. Somebody who's brand new and is given a lot really quickly, a lot of times, people will feel a certain way about it. They'll have some resentment towards that person. Now, that could be what Roxy is feeling. She could say, hey, man, I've had people in this league who had to really work a long time to get an opportunity at these championship belts.
Sure.
And you come in here and you're 3 matches in and you beat Jay Washington, some guy I can't remember, and Hector Navarro, and you get a number 1 contenders match? I mean, come on, man. So I could see why she would think, hey, you're given too much too soon. But even if that's the case, I don't think it explains him not being worthy to be on the undercard, because if Kevin Smets has showed us anything in his movie Trivia Schmoedown career thus far, he's ready. Right. I mean, he might have had a big slip of the tongue, and one of the, if not maybe the worst answer,
flubs.
It wasn't a bad answer,
right.
But just worse flub.
Yeah,
flub. I think it's 10 times worse than Southside with me, Southside with you. I really do. I think it's so much worse than that. And I don't want to put that on Kevin. I know he's a fan of the show. Listens to the show. Kev, I don't want to put that on you, but that's one that you got to earn. You got to wear that one.
Yeah.
You got to wear it like a scarlet letter.
I think.
And he's owned up to it on Twitter. I saw him
100%,
talking about how
100%.
when Kobe missed when airballed those shots, he stayed in the gym all season long until he won a championship again. And he was watching Spider-Man with the subtitles on, and he said, "Don't tell Harry." Okay, cool. Yeah, and you know what? He's going to come back and he's going to be better than ever. It's not if, it's when.
I wonder.
For him to be on the card, absolutely. It's first of all, it's San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
It's Comic-Con.
Right.
You have an Inner Geekdom Championship match already on the show. These are people who, or at least seemingly, were going to like Inner Geekdom style matches because it's Comic-Con.
Right.
You should have one of your strongest Inner Geekdom players on there. You shouldn't just have two Jaybirds on there. You should have your strongest Inner Geekdom player on there, and he's one of the top 3 strongest Inner Geekdom players in the league right now. So he absolutely deserves it.
The only thing that I can think of why Roxy might have said that is because Kevin Smets had his shot at San Diego, and that was to beat Kalinowski. He didn't, so therefore he missed his opportunity to go to San Diego. And by giving Smets the undercard match at San Diego is like rewarding him for a loss. That's the only thing I can come up with why you might say he doesn't deserve it because he had a shot, he missed it. But I do agree with the point you just said that look, it's Comic-Con. You want an all Inner Geekdom card, like it makes sense.
This is what sometimes I think people of maybe fans of the UFC. There was talk about Brock Lesnar coming back and fighting Daniel Cormier for the heavyweight championship, and everyone was like, "Well, hey, he hasn't even been in the sport in 3 years. He hasn't had a fight. His last fight was a no contest. Why would he get a championship match?" And Dana White says, "Because he draws money. And this is a business.
Yeah, hey,
I'm trying to make money.
Right.
I'm not trying to live within your rules and your confines and constructs.
I'm trying to sell
of how
tickets
I'm gonna run my business. I'm trying to sell tickets. Brock Lesnar, DC, that sells tickets. Kevin Smets, Inner Geekdom, San Diego, Comic-Con, that sells tickets. There's not a lot of. I don't have to scratch my head too much to make sense out of why Christian would do such a thing. Why the chairman would do such a thing. It sells tickets, man. It sells
there
tickets, man.
Yeah.
That's all we got to know. That's all we got to say. Okay. But let's move on for that. Last thing about we need to address on the show.
Yeah.
The breakup of Critically Acclaimed.
Yes.
We saw it happen. It went down. And I got to say, Whitney Seibold playing the scorned lover is so phenomenal in this role. We saw him kind of come over to Bibiani in the Tuesday match, the teams match, and goes, "Hey, who's the kid?"
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly
I don't know.
what
He just keeps popping up in scenes with me. I love the meta in this. It was great.
Great fourth wall. Great fourth wall. But, the way Whitney said, "Who's the kid?" It reminds me of how my girlfriend asked me, "Who's so-and-so?" after I double tap a picture on Instagram. Who is this? And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, shit, just somebody in the feed.
I meant to block
just
it.
scrolling.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
right.
I didn't know. You want me to? I'll take it back.
I'll take it back.
I won't do it again. I'll take the like back.
Yeah.
So that's what this reminded me of, man. It was really funny the way he was interrogating Bibiani, and then he said, "You know what? We're done. It's over. Wraps. Put a fork in it. Throw it in a body bag. Bury it 6 feet under. Put it in the incinerator. It is done." And Bibbs seemed very upset about this. Then fast forward to the next scene that we saw in the singles match. We saw Whitney Seibold there, and he was texting on his phone. And Bibbs comes up to him and says, "Hey, man, I don't want to leave, with this bad feeling.
Right.
I've been trying to call you. I've been trying to text you. I don't know if you've had problems texting lately," as Whitney's texting away. And then Whitney says, "You know what? I really don't have time to talk right now. I'm in the middle of a conversation, text message conversation. And by the way, I found a new partner." And Frank, tell everybody who this new partner is.
You're talking about Whitney and the great and mysterious Mark Hewick. I think that's how you say his last name. Hewick? Hook?
Yes.
Hewick?
Yeah. What do we?
It's Hewick.
What do we know about Hewick?
Well, I mean, remember from Anarchy, Whitney and him were self-righteous brothers, so
Yes.
They were interesting team, and I'm curious to see. I mean, I think they're going to be in the tournament probably. So this is going to be interesting. And then let's say Whitney and Bibbs, their two new teams. I mean, Bibbs has no idea who his teammate could be, right? Just I don't know who.
If I had to guess,
it could be like.
If I had to guess,
okay.
I would say Sean Gerber.
Okay.
I think
I don't think he's doing anything right now.
Strong in the running.
Yeah.
Strong in the running.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, it's probably going to be, the kid.
The kid
would probably be his partner there. But I mean, Chris Clark isn't here with us today. He is still alive. He's just not here with us today. I admit I need to clarify. It's a busy weekend for him, but I'm sure that somewhere in a Spider-Man Far From Home screening, he is in full, like arm deep in a bucket of popcorn, sad crying and eating this thing completely. I mean, he didn't even see the post-credit scene of Far From Home. I mean, he's blinded. He's blinded by his despair and sorrow. He's blind now. Thank you, Whitney and Bibbs. Now Chris Clark is blind because of you. So we'll see how this goes going forward. I would like to see an eventual maybe match between these two.
That'd be fun.
Let them break up, and then I think that Bibbs and the kid. I think this is a good matchup, though. I really do. I think this is a good team. We saw what the kid did at the free for all. He's come back. Video Drew. He had a great match against Video Drew, and I think that he and Bibbs might be something. And once again, another great team being added to an already deep team's division. But Frank Janisch, man, I mean, we could talk about the Schmoedown all day.
Okay.
But unfortunately, we just can't.
Oh, okay.
We just can't.
No.
Okay. Because we're #WithALife, and we have other things to do. I have another job to get to. You have stuff, and we got
so much stuff.
But Frank Janisch, any closing thoughts on what we saw this week? And if you don't, just let the people know where they can find you and follow you on this abridged version of the rundown.
Yeah, I thought this week was really interesting for Jeannine. I just what's it gonna take? What's it gonna take for? I know she got a W in the teams, and that was narrowly,
That's what it's gonna take.
it was
being in the teams,
narrowly, one. But in singles, it's just like, man, it's right there for her. So continue to root for Jeannine, and I think it's eventually going to come around. Players like her, I think it eventually happens. I mean, she might be I know Ben Bateman isn't finished being Ben Bateman, but when Ben Bateman gets over that hump, then she will be the next Ben Bateman. You know what I'm trying to say?
Well, I feel you.
Right. So. But other than that, you guys, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at FrankieJ29.
You can find me on all social media at Brad Gilmore. I agree with you what you're saying about Jeannine, but it's what I was saying earlier. I think that some people, they work better in a team. But you can find me on all social media at Brad Gilmore. Check out the Hall of Fame podcast with me and Booker T 3 times a week. And new episodes of Back to the Future podcast coming up soon. And all kinds of great stuff for Frank Janisch and Chris Clark. My name is Brad Gilmore. This is the Schmoedown Rundown, and the boat is going to float on out of here, brother.
Is that a drugs reference? Dare. D-A-R-E. Dare. Remember Dare? Do you have Dare? You have Dare? Remember Dare? The Dare program? Dare? With the lion? Dare lion? Lion Dare? Dare? Okay.